Hi, today I'm taking a look at a single vineyard Syrah from Hawke's Bay. So this is the North Island of New Zealand on the east coast, and this is from the Church Road Winery. It's a single vineyard release of theirs from the Redstone Vineyard. It's a 2018 Syrah. Hawke's Bay, relatively warm, relatively dry area of New Zealand. It makes it well suited to producing full-bodied whites and more structured, fuller-bodied reds. So Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and Syrah tend to do better here than they do elsewhere in New Zealand. And this particularly is from a portion of vineyards known as the Bridgepath Triangle. Church Road has quite a long history as a winery. It traces its origins back to 1897, and that shows that actually Hawke's Bay as a centre for winemaking has one of the longest histories in New Zealand, although a lot of the industry grew up. The industry we know now grew up around Auckland. There was winemaking going on in Hawke's Bay from about the 1840s. Church Road was famously run by somebody called Tom McDonald, who produced some fabulous Cabernet Sauvignons. I've tasted wines of his back from the 1950s, and some of them are still going strong. His success encouraged McWilliams, large Australian winery, to invest in his winery, and they ran the winery for a long period. Currently, Church Road is run by, or is owned by Pernod Ricard, the International Wine and Spirits Group, and they have a long-serving chief winemaker there, Chris Scott, who crafts a range of wines that, from introductory level wines right the way up through to the premium range that is called Tom. And these single vineyard wines that they're producing are designed to sit at the top of that range. Bridgepath itself is an area of about 2,000 hectares. It's the floodplains of a river that has since had stop banks added to it. So you've got deep, friable soils, a lot of it deposited by glaciers, so fractured stone, with a light covering of wind-blown loess as a topsoil, and a certain amount of clay in the Bridgepath soils. Bridgepath is probably better. It is probably less well known than its near neighbour to the east, the Gimlet Gravels, but both are part of the same sort of floodplain, and both have these sort of deep, free-draining gravels. Bridgepath tends to have a little more clay and is thought to produce quite plush, textured wines as a result. This particular wine is identified as being from the Redstone Vineyard, and it's bottle number 1752, and we were kindly given this by Pernod Ricard to taste. The wine is made to a very, very high standard. Single vineyard, picked over a couple of days, aged in, they refer to it as 3-year seasoned oak, which I've seen some commentators believe that the wine ages for 3 years in oak. I don't actually know how long the wine aged in, but I think what they're talking about is the fact that the oak has been long seasoned and therefore is of high quality. A third of it is new. The oak size is barrique, so there's some quite serious winemaking going on in there. So let's have a look at the wine and see what we make of it, shall we? First of all, the colour. As I say, this is a 2018, so it has a little bit of age to it, but not a lot. You've got a medium to deep ruby red there, slight purple at the rim. It's not quite opaque, but it's not far off it, I guess. As you swirl it, it shows some tears on the glass, but nothing particularly exceptional. I mean, the alcohol is actually only noted as being 13% on the label, so that I'm not expecting this to be a huge rich example of Syrah. So let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? The aromas are very savoury. The fruit is quite introverted, and the notes are sort of earthy and spicy. I might almost wonder if there's a tiny touch of what they call Brettanomyces on there. It's not to an extent that it's marring it with notes of mousiness, which it can do, but Brettanomyces just depresses the fruit a little. But this certainly has very savoury aromas. You know, slightly meaty, a slight touch of smoky bacon there, which is a very classic note for Syrah on the nose. And let's have a taste. Gosh, that's a very classic Syrah. I think, tasted blind, I might well have thought that this came from the Rhone Valley somewhere. Following on from the nose, it's a very savoury style there. You've got a sort of an earthiness and a slight smoky bacon nature. There's a delicate pepperiness at the back there, sort of black pepper, not white pepper, so quite robust in that sort of point of view. The wine's of medium to full body, and it's got reasonable structure. I mean, Syrah rarely has particularly angular tannins, and they are rounded, but they're plentiful, and they're giving some dryness, and they're helping to peak up that pepper note towards the finish. The alcohol isn't overbearing, but actually sort of seems to be giving quite a bit of warmth to the back palate, which for 13% is, well, I'm a little surprised by, to be honest. I'm saying medium to medium full bodied. I might be understating that a bit. There's a fair amount of weight, and the fruit is just starting to show through towards the finish. So I suspect this is a wine that, you know, will, given 4 or 5 years, will really open up quite a bit. The fruit is a sort of it's a sort of a red plum to mulberry note. The acidity is balanced, but it's not really sort of lifting it and making that lively. It's the fruit is still velvety textured and coloured with those sort of savoury notes there, the sort of the earthiness, and then overlaid with the sort of peppery notes across the top. The flavours are lasting reasonably well, but the tannins are slightly closing up the finish, leaving it a little bit sort of meaty. There's still, while they're a little drying, there's a sort of a lovely velvety nature to them, not quite chocolatey, but velvety at that point. So a young wine, quite classic in a sort of a Syrah style, very impressive actually. It's got a lovely concentration and a nice balance to it. It's not sort of overbearingly and bursting from the glass, but it's continuing nicely, and I think this has got a nice future ahead of it. I think you could very happily keep this wine for 10 years and it would still be improving. So thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting, and yeah, well worth trying some Hawke's Bay Syrah if you've not done so before. Bye now.